a year.
You know what they say, never talk about politics, religion, or sex, lest you risk damaging your friendships. But what happens when you have three people whose friendship is built on debating those very topics? One's a believer surrounded by skeptics, one's a heterosexual surrounded by gays, and one's a moderate surrounded by extremists, and they're all hardly qualified. Introducing Hardly Qualified, a podcast recorded in prosperous Calgary, Alberta, where Will Connor, Rob Walker, and Angry Duck get together every week to discuss the issues of the day. Rob's on the left, Duck is on the right, and Will is stuck in the middle. And here they are, hardly qualified to pontificate about the issues they're talking about. But if nothing else, they're entertaining.
Well, welcome, I guess, back to episode 3. We still have no idea what we're doing yet, but we're figuring it out. Bob is currently in the UK. Actually, right now he should be sitting in the Toronto International Airport, probably going through customs or some such. But as you're hearing this, he's in the UK. So,
he's getting visually scanned by those naked computer things.
Yes, but he's been painted, so it's all right. It's all his frustrating orange and blue.
Yeah, the CTSA guys are like, why is half an avatar and half a Tigra here?
That's a pretty cool project that Maddie's got going on there. Looks like an interesting showing and book and everything. So, yeah. So good luck to Bob, Robert, sorry, in the UK and your residency requirement and driving on the wrong side of the road.
It's not wrong, it's just the other side of the road.
Find the inappropriate side of the road?
Yeah. See, I'm of a mixed mind when it comes to that idea, because I'm super pro-UK in everything, and I wish Canada was more like the UK, but at the same time, I really like being on the right side of the road. And I really hate the fact that we're like Americans in that respect. It's like Canada's like straddling the gulf between the UK and the Americans.
I was so fantastically confused when I moved to England, and I suddenly had to look the other way before crossing the road. I was almost in half a dozen car accidents, like in the first couple of weeks I lived there, because I had no idea which way to look when I was crossing the road. Very confused.
Where did you move from?
From Norway to England.
Oh, wow.
And then Norway has, normal driving directions.
Normal.
Same. Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, is the voice of Maia, our guest speaker, our guest host, who is subbing for Robert as he's globetrotting. Maia, would you like to introduce yourself to the rest of the world? Because neither Ducky or I have.
Right. Well, hi. I just waved. That was really stupid.
That's the best part of radio.
Visual jokes on the air. That's very good. My name is Maia. I'm from Norway originally. Currently, I'm living in Sweden. I'm a musician, singer, songwriter, and just generally politically interested. So, yeah, that's me.
The musician part was when I was talking about you on the episode 1. I neglected the musician part, and then afterwards I said singer, songwriter, entertainer, and adorable, and why did I miss the most important part?
Well, singer, songwriter, musician, you've kind of got it all in there, haven't you?
Yeah.
Guess that's okay. I can live with that.
Do you have a website or blog or a place where people can check out your products, download your CDs, whatever?
Yeah, people can go to my website. It's just maiamadness.com. That's Maia with an I. And I've got Twitter, just again, Maia Madness. So you can find me and talk to me and follow me and stalk me and whatever,
Woo-hoo.
I have an online presence.
Awesome.
But my website's like a portal to all the other places I'm at, so you can You can like me on Facebook too if you really want.
Yeah, that's kind of where I draw the line. I have a pretty public presence with my website, the williamconnor.ca, which is what Hardly Qualified is hosted off of. But it's kind of like Facebook is like my walled garden from the rest of the world. It's only where I allow those people that I kind of sort of trust to participate in my life.
Despite all the hysteria, Facebook does have privacy settings and stuff, so you do get to regulate who gets to hang out in your Facebook wall.
Yeah, no, it's not like I just give away my regular Facebook to people or anything, but I have like a page, one of those musician page thingies that people can like.
Oh, you got a fan page?
So, yeah. So
that's cool.
Why didn't I know about this? Clickety click, going to Facebook, gonna stalk Maia.
Do you not like me on Facebook?
I like a lot of your posts, but I have you personally on Facebook. I don't have your public profile, so...
How'd you miss that? I think...
Yeah, he's a real friend.
I think I've invited like everyone I know to that thing, and I still only have 150 likes. Out of the 500 odd people I'm friends with on Facebook.
500 people?
Yeah, I don't even know all of them.
Is Amanda Palmer one of them?
No.
No? Oh.
I wish.
Yeah, because you seemed pretty excited when she retweeted that tweet of yours.
Oh, that's because she's amazing, and that just made me really happy.
We're getting a little inside baseball here, guys.
Yeah, sorry.
That's quite all right.
We can edit this out, right?
Yeah, but we don't.
Yeah. Unless Will comes to me afterwards and is like, "Why didn't you edit that out? Go back. Go re-edit."
The first 10 or 15 minutes are for friendly banter where we convince, this is where the true test of loyalty for our listeners lies. If they make it past the first 15 minutes, then they know they're going to get the reward. And the first 10 minutes, it's, people are, I'm not going to listen to this crap and go find a real podcast or watch a test pattern on TV or something interesting.
Anything is more fun than this.
Well, speaking of the re-editing, I don't know if you guys noticed, but last week in episode 2, Will's recording software futzed up. And what ended up happening was that I had to take the incoming feeds from both myself and Rob, where it's Rob's voice mixed with Will's and my voice mixed with Will's, and I had to go through each of them pixel by pixel by pixel and pull out Rob's voice from one feed and my voice from the other feed. So I had 2 separate feeds that were half of Will on each one, and then merge them. It took me 8 hours, and I was just like, when I was done, I was like, never again! So, make sure your recording button is working.
My recording button is fully working.
I just realized I don't even have my headset on, so there's going to be like nasty feedback in this.
Oh, well, we'll try to be quiet then.
Well, here, I'll plug it in a second. Just because I care about our listeners, not because I care too much about Ducky. I mean, work slave work, that's what I say.
I can see why sound engineers charge like $30 an hour to do that kind of crap, but they also probably have more schooling at it than I do. So what's new with you, Will, in the last week?
Stuff and things. No, I don't know. A couple of interesting, highly dramatic things happened in my life that nobody really cares about. So I spent the day at the vet with my cat yesterday to find out that he's diabetic and might have intestinal cancer or renal failure. He's lost a lot of weight very rapidly, and we're not entirely sure what the cause of it is, and we're investigating it at the grace of my visa, I guess.
Yeah.
So, that, and my university just passed a policy for the Health and Community Studies faculty. It's a 2 strikes you're out policy, where if you take a D, F, or W in a core course, you can be required either after 1 or 2 attempts to withdraw, or what they call an invitation not to return to the program.
Euphemism.
Yeah. So I do a lot with the student association. I sit on the academic student caucus, and that's kind of been my big political thing, is trying to...
That's your pet project, basically?
Yeah, well, it didn't really work, all the meetings and the letters and the blog posts and talking to students and faculty, and it still passed. So
Yeah, well, it's a university. They don't listen to the students.
we asked for concessions, and they're like, no.
Well, you should stop paying them. Oh, right.
What do you mean, no right? I do pay them.
Yeah, I know, but not all of what they get paid.
55% of my tuition covers the cost, or what I pay is 55% of the cost. And then on the other end, I pay taxes because I also work. So
as long as they know that, right?
I don't think they care.
Yeah.
We're a university now. We're no longer a college. It's time to crack down.
Yeah, I used to go to Mount Royal when it was a college.
Yeah.
Speaking of colleges, did you hear about this open sex club thing that they're starting up at the U of T?
University of Toronto?
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
Tell us.
Okay. Well, I guess the health center or whatever has started what they're calling a sex parties, and basically it's supposed to provide a sex positive atmosphere to students who are interested in that kind of thing, which on its face, is not really a bad thing, but at the same time you have to question, instead of teaching our students how to have better sex, shouldn't we be teaching them how to think critically and how to do math?
Okay, well, let me ask you, is that the Students' Union or Students' Association that's doing that, or is...
No, it's the actual it's the actual curriculum now. Well, I don't know if it's curriculum, but it's done by the administration.
Oh, okay.
By the health and I want to say health and beauty, but that's not what it is.
Community studies.
Yeah, like all the soft, gooey stuff that faculty has put together this sex positive room where there's no sort of questions about propriety.
Well, that ticks me off.
I think that's really nice.
Well, I mean, on one hand, like I said, on one hand it's a great idea, but on the other hand it's kind of low on the list of priorities of things we should be teaching students. Because, when you can't even formulate a coherent thought and then express it coherently, like how do you expect to get a job if you can't do simple balancing checkbooks?
That depends on the job.
When was the last time anyone asked you to check your rhetoric as you were having sex?
Yeah, so...
I've wanted to tell people to do that occasionally, but that's just me.
Oh, baby, you're so hot. That's not grammatically correct.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you do get some really, really bad bedroom talk from some people, though. You're just lying there and you're thinking, no, you can't. That's stupid. Don't say that.
Oh, now you have to give us an example.
Oh, it's really not possible. There was this guy years ago who he had this dialect from the southwest of Norway, which to begin with sounds slightly silly, and then he was trying to do this whole dirty talk thing to me, and it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, and I had to basically just hold my tongue and not to laugh at him. Which you can't do that. You can't laugh at a bloke while he's doing you. That's just not nice.
You say, what, it tickles.
That doesn't really help. Oh, that tickles. That's all it's doing.
What about you, Maya? What's new in your life? What's happened in the last week?
Oh God, in my life, nothing. So very little has happened this week. No, we're preparing for we're going on tour in March. So we've basically just been preparing for that, and then we've had this course at school in basically song composition, music composition, which was quite good, to be fair. Other than that, I have basically just spent all of my time reading for fun.
What are you reading?
Fan fiction.
Huh?
Is it Sherlock Holmes and Watson / fiction?
No. I'm way beyond that now. At this point, I am actually reading James Bond and Q fanfiction.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how that happened.
The internet is a deep, dark place that takes you to interesting places that get you going that you never thought you had.
You never go looking for it, but you find yourself there.
Yeah, and Tumblr is the most dangerous part of that, because if you're on Tumblr, you're going to come across things that you never thought you would ever see.
Right.
Or hear about, and then suddenly you're sitting there and you're reading something, you're reading something that you're thinking, this cannot be good. This will never. I will never enjoy this. And then you're reading, and it's like, this is actually quite good. This is okay. This is well written.
Wow.
This is not objectionable.
No, It's well written. If the words are good enough, then you know, you can convince me of anything in that context, anyway.
Yes. You know, last night I was looking at our rankings in the iPod or the iTunes store, and we're within the top 200 in the philosophy section. Yeah, we're number 137.
How many are there in there?
Oh, there's more than 200. 138 has been broadcasting or podcasting for about 3 years. So, I mean, that's got to kind of suck for them. But
well, maybe it's just novelty too.
Yeah, and we can't take too much credit for it. I mean, number 100 and number 39 are also furry podcasts. So, you know, take that as you will. Not that I have anything against furries. I really don't. But it's Furcast is number 39. We're 137. So we have a long way to go.
But it's not really a competition. I don't think it's not like we're here to be number one. We're just here to be entertaining.
Oh no, I know that. I just want to see kind of, you know, how people are responding, and like we have subscribers now in Germany and China, UK, US, Canada, and I'm like
in China.
I know. I swear. Like
I don't know. The only thing I could think of is your husband.
My husband lives here.
Yeah, I know, but your husband could have told his family.
Yeah, they don't speak English. But anyway, you know, maybe a friend or something, who knows, but whatever. But Germany, I don't know anyone in Germany. Do you know anyone in Germany?
Swedish Dan.
Okay, well, anyway. to all you people in countries that are not Canada, you're weird, but thank you. No, I'm kidding. You know what? It's really cool to see the little graphics on that map light up and see that people are downloading us and listening to us and feel that we have some sort of value to contribute to their lives. Or maybe they're just supporting us and downloading it and deleting it. But, you know.
That's the glory of the internet, though. I mean, you know, we three can sit in a bubble in Western Canada and talk about stupid shit. And somebody on the other side, like literally on the other side of the planet, can hear what we say within minutes and is actually interested in what we have to say.
Yeah, it's the long tail, right?
As for myself, this last week has been fairly uneventful. I started getting sick. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I'm starting to get a lung infection. And my roommate just gave me a Percocet, so I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I'll have a Percocet. She's like, I'm all out of regular Tylenol. All I have left is Percocet. And I'm like, yeah.
Isn't that like a controlled substance?
Yeah. It's, they're left.
So it wasn't your roommate, it was like a stranger.
Yes, it was a homeless guy who was walking down the street, and I was just like, hey, you know, do you got some Percocet for a 49er?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but, and the guy that I was talking about in episode 1, I think it was episode 1, that just disappeared from work, he's back. So I am back to my regular 3 days off, which is exciting. So, yay! Yeah. Other than that, I have done nothing except post-production. I haven't even played any video games. It's just been work, post-production, and arguing with Will over bed music.
Well, you could hear anything in the first... Anyway, doesn't matter. Thank you, Ducky, for, you know, putting in the effort. I appreciate it. If you didn't do it, I would have had to, so... All
right, so what are we going to talk about today, kids?
Well, it looks like we have in the fodder bucket the Judgments photo.
Well, I was hoping to end off on that.
Okay, well, we'll end off on the Judgments photo.
Yeah, I was saying why don't we start with HSBC?
HSBC. Okay, so do you have you would have HSBC where you are, Maya? They're the world's bank, right? So that's the Hong Kong Singapore Bank of China. I guess it's British owned. They're the world's largest commercial bank, and they have been recently convicted of funneling or helping launder money for Iran and Cuba and Islamic terrorists, actively coaching these people to bypass American and Canadian and UK screening legislation and reporting legislation. And when it came out, the American Justice Department decided that, well, this isn't a really good thing for banks to be doing, is actively circumventing our finance laws and working with our enemies. As I'm sure we could all agree is probably not a good thing for anybody to be doing. You know, even if you're in Iran, you don't want your banks that are operating there bypassing your legislation just because it's convenient for them to do so. So anyway, long story short, the U.S. Department of Justice decided that in order to prosecute the people responsible and the managers responsible who oversaw these transactions, would cause too much of a disruption to HSBC's operation and cause irreparable harm to our financial industry, because, it's such stable and strong thing right now anyway, that they've decided, and they've declared it actually too big to prosecute. Instead, they've levied $1.9 billion US in fines and required HSBC to submit to 5 years of procedural oversight. So,
well, it's better than nothing. But I mean, I guess that's one way that the U.S. could try to dig their way out of that debt hole, is to just, it's like cops don't take your car away for speeding anymore; they just fine you, right? So maybe that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to move justice away from throwing people in prison and more into, taking away their money.
But that leaves us with a multi-tiered justice system, right? Where if you can buy your freedom, then you can have it.
I think they should do both. Fine them the money and find them more money, because let's be fair here, that amount isn't actually all that much compared to their, revenue and what they make and what they, have. At the very least, the fine should be a lot bigger.
It sounds like what it is a rap on the knuckles saying, tisk, tisk, we see what you're pulling there, don't do it again. But without, rap on the knuckles really isn't going to stop somebody from doing something like that. See, because the problem with fines, at least as far as I understand it, is that, because it's the same kind of problem we have with, like, environmental damage that happens, is that the government comes along and fines the company for pollution or whatever, and the company just absorbs it and considers it the cost of doing business because it's so insignificant compared to their revenues.
Yeah.
So.
Well, for HSBC, this amounts to about 4 weeks of pre-tax revenue. Or pre-tax profits. So, it's really not a lot. And knowing the banks, they're probably going to find some way to finance it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can get tax write-offs for paying government fines, but if there's a way to do that, I'm sure they'll find it. I don't know. It really bothers me because I'm of two minds of this. My husband has for his risk management paper, he kind of took a look at this in terms of, is it worth it for the state to go after companies like this? Something like HSBC, in some senses, it would almost be advantageous for them to be prosecuted because they can drag it out forever, and they have more money to spend on
than the
government does, and they have more resources to throw. They have more lawyers. They can drown the government in procedure. Whereas it's almost more expedient for the government to say, you know what, just give us this money, and the burden of proof is lower. And in one sense, it's more efficient for the government. In another sense, it's tyrannical. And in another, and what really concerns me is it sends this message to the rest of the population that there's one set of laws for you and there's one set of laws for us.
Well, it doesn't seem to me that it's like separate sets of laws. What it seems like is selective enforcement.
Yeah.
And that's always been something that we need to be on guard for, because selective enforcement always, causes problems.
But it's the idea that they've publicly come out and said that this company is above the law. They are too big to prosecute. I mean, we heard the uproar over the too big to fail thing back in 2008, 2009, whatever. But too big to prosecute, I mean, I don't understand that concept. That just doesn't fit with our ideas of jurisprudence. The Queen has to sign an order cutting off her own head if that's what Parliament demands of her. So why can't a bank be prosecuted? Like, nobody should be above the law. Justice is supposed to be blind, not peeking.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's a tricky issue. I understand the economics of it, but it's kind of like
the principle of the thing.
Yeah, there was an Alberta MP that got pulled over a couple of years ago, or MLA rather. No, or maybe I think it was MP. I can't remember.
No, he's an MP. He's the dude from Edmonton, right?
Yeah, and
I was just reading this story.
Well, go ahead.
Edmonton MP, what's his name here? Blah, 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 blah. 13 and a half months after being charged by police with refusing to provide a breast sample, Edmonton MP Peter Goldring finally got his day in court. He's basically testifying that his charter rights were breached during the arrest, so he's non-culpable. And the police have accused him of trying to use the fact that he's a member of parliament to get special preferential treatment.
Well, that was the first thing he told the officer. The second thing he told the officer is, I'm a member of parliament. And the cop's like, okay, so?
Well, he's denying it in his statement, but yeah, that's the allegation, is that he had sought special treatment as a result of being an MP, and tried to use that fact to influence the way the police officer was handling him. So, I don't know. I wasn't there, so it's up to the courts to decide, but yeah.
So we're all settled that we don't like this too big to prosecute thing, but it's kind of just the reality of the world we live in?
Well, I don't think we should accept it, but there's really not a whole lot that the little guy can do, I don't think, other than, stop banking with HSBC.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably the most effective thing that we can do is, as a society, if we as individuals do not agree with the behavior or activities of a corporation or a company, we vote with our wallets. We could go to a competitor. I mean, that's the glory of capitalism, is that you can actually go away from. You're not forced to support a company who's doing bad business practices. I think the problem is A, getting people aware of what's happened, and 2, convincing them that it's a bad idea and making them care enough to close their accounts and go to, I don't know, Royal Bank or, Bank of America or something.
Right. Do either of you bank with HSBC?
I don't know.
No.
Yeah, so me neither.
I'm not sure I've actually ever even heard of them before this.
Oh, okay.
Well, see, before this story, I thought that they were the Hudson's Bay Company Bank. Because I keep hearing about HBC, right? Hudson's Bay Company. So I was like, well, maybe HSBC is just, they got bought by somebody. And then Will was like, no, they're British-owned Chinese bank. And I'm like, oh, okay. That's when I started looking into it. But
well, I think you're right about voting with your dollars. I've always stayed away from CIBC, the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, just because whenever there's some sort of financial scandal, whether it be some sort of money laundering or pyramid scheme, or whether it was Tyco or Enron or any of that kind of stuff, bad loans in the States, Bre-X, CIBC's always taking the biggest write-downs on there. Like, they're the first ones there.
Well, they're also the biggest bank in Canada, too, so...
No, RBC is.
Really?
The Royal Bank is, yeah.
Since when? Oh,
Since,
it must be new.
Always.
Since always. I don't know. I've cycled through banks, and I'm with CIBC right now, and I found that CIBC is the nicest to me as a customer. They're the most forgiving when I do stupid shit.
Yeah?
Yeah. Like when I go into my overdraft, they go, okay, no worries. Here, have some more money.
Oh. They charge you for the privilege, though.
They charge me for the privilege.
Yeah. So,
But, I mean, at least I'm not getting service charged to death like I was at Scotia, and, I'm not having my accounts, stolen from like I was at Royal Bank.
Well.
But, I don't know, maybe Scotia and Royal have changed in the last 10 years.
Scotia's definitely changed. They've anyway, that's neither here nor there. We can talk about that offline. And we probably won't, but...
Okay. Well, that's, I guess that brings us to the end of our first little discussion. It always goes so fast when we agree, when we three have the same position.
I know, eh?
I think that's only happened once before. But, I think it's because we all have a sense of justice. And, this, no matter what your position is arguably unjust.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
Although, feel free to contradict us just on principle, Maya. I mean,
yeah.
I'll do that to Bob and Ducky sometimes. It'll be like, no. And they'll be like, how can you say that? I'm like, just to be antagonistic.
Devil's advocate. All right. Okay, so let's take a break. 3, 2, 1, go.
If you're hearing this, it means that neither Ducky, Will, nor Rob bothered to make anything to fit in here, so I had to do it. I hate those stupid wankers always expecting me to pick up their slack. It's not like I have anything better to do, like being British and drinking tea or anything. I just sit around all day, waiting for the chance to do voiceover work for their silly little podcast.
Time.
Oh, wait, time's up? No! I was told I had 20 seconds and I'm gonna take my...
That was a great break.
Welcome back.
Yay! I hope you really liked whatever it was that we inserted in there. I'm sure it's a great product and/or service, and you should make use of it or not. Or
I don't know. Maybe we should. We don't have any. Well, our T-shirt. That's what we'll have an ad for our T-shirt.
we don't have a T-shirt yet.
We'll have an ad for our future T-shirt.
We have an ad for our T-shirt concept, which is available on the website. You can look at it. It begs you to which one of us do you think is more of an idiot? I think is how I wrote it. But anyway.
I love Hardly Qualified, but Rob, Will, Ducky is an idiot, and they're little check boxes, so you have to decide which one's the idiot.
Or two, or all, I mean, or
all
not.
Of us.
Yeah,
it should be D, all of the above.
Or me, the guy wearing the shirt. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. No, if you buy the T-shirt, you're not the idiot.
No.
You're the what we all aspire to be like. Okay, so what do you guys want to talk about now?
Well, we were talking about being forced to, through law, to do actions that you may not want to take. So I think that kind of, you had proposed this story about the Canadian involvement in Mali.
Oh, yeah. If you guys don't know what this is all about, okay. Mali is a country in West Africa, in like around Golden Coast and Ivory Coast and like south of Algeria and Morocco and whatnot. And right now, the whole northeast corner of the country has been taken over by Islamic insurgents. They're called Al-Qaeda, Islamic Maghreb, something I don't know how to pronounce it correctly, but their acronym is AQIM. And they're basically they have been waging this sort of separatist succession war for the last couple of years. With the fall of Libya, a bunch of the weapons that were running around in Libya suddenly became unowned and untracked and whatnot, and they have fallen into the hands of this group. And a lot of the people who are fighting on behalf of the Gaddafi regime have now moved over to help these guys. And I guess what's happened is that the government in Mali has fallen, and it's currently being run by a few of the government military guys, and they basically control the capital city, and that's about it. So the French have decided to join up with the African Union to basically do this counterinsurgency to basically reconquer Mali and take it back. And Canada has been sending hundreds of millions of dollars a year in foreign aid to Mali. We have huge corporate investment in Mali. Mali is like the number one exporter of gold in all of Africa, and Canada has a lot of companies that are involved in that industry there. So we have a vested interest in the stability of the Malinese society. So Peter MacKay, our defense minister, basically said, "Hey, France, do you need some help?" And France said, "Sure, we don't need any guns, but if you got a big airplane that we can borrow, that'd be awesome." So yeah, we sent one of our C-117s over to help ferry equipment across the Mediterranean Sea for the French. And right now the government's saying, yeah, that's it. That's all we're going to do. It's logistic support, and that's it. We've got a few people that are specialists who are going to be there for, to help with command and control and communications and stuff. But there's no actual combat role involved.
So is this a French action or is this a UN action?
It's a French act. Well, it's an African Union action, but because Mali is a former French colony, France has taken the lead. So there's like 11 African nations, and France are all taking part in this. But it's not UN. Yeah, at least I haven't seen anything coming out of the UN about it. But yeah, it's pretty much I don't want to say unilateral because there's more than one country involved, but it's not an international community effort type thing. It's more of a local thing.
Right. So it's to push back the invading hordes, as it were. It's not a civil war. It's not a proxy war.
Not really. It's basically, these jihadis have conquered, basically, and overthrown half the country, and they're occupying it in the northeast. Because the country of Mali is shaped kind of like if you took two squares and you put them corner to corner, they're kind of shaped like that. And so the narrowest section of the country is where basically the border is between the lawless, insurgency land, and then this tiny little, the southwest section is this tiny little, government control that's about a quarter the size of the northeast section. So the government it fell back in March, and there's been continuous sort of running, skirmishes back and forth between government forces and these insurgents. I think the biggest concern that people are having right now is that they don't want Mali to become like Yemen or like Afghanistan, where there's no centralized government, there's no, rule of law. It's just warlords running around, in pickup trucks with 50 cals on the back, doing whatever the hell they want. And like Sudan, they're trying to prevent that from Mali from becoming one of those, failed states. Particularly because it's so rich in gold, right? I mean, we already have problems with blood diamonds, right? We don't want to be expanding that to like blood gold. And also because there's the rationale that I've heard describing our involvement has been that Canada has a lot of foreign investment, not only as government issue foreign aid, but also private investiture for a lot of our mining industries. But the other one is that we're all participated in the liberation of Libya, and because of that, we have some limited culpability with the fallout. And it can be argued that the increase in power of these insurgents in Mali is at least, if not a direct result, but a lateral result of the chaos that popped up from Libya, and arguably is still there. I mean, Libya still hasn't really settled itself down because they're still trying to figure out how to make decisions for themselves.
Yeah, that whole region is really destabilizing. I don't know if you saw on CNN today. I'll post that in the fodder bucket. But the Algerian hostage crisis was somewhat brutally ended, from what I understand, when the military went in and just kind of shot everyone, terrorists and hostages alike.
Well, not really. Only 23 of the 600 or 700 hostages were actually killed. And the reports that I saw said that most of those were killed by the insurgents, who realized that they weren't going to be able to get away or whatever, so they just decided to, kill the hostages first and then deal with the troops that were coming in. But yeah, I mean, the Algerian special forces did an initial strike a couple days ago, because this natural gas plant it's been under siege basically for almost a week, and there was initially 13 or 1400 workers that were all held captive on this compound, because this isn't like just a little factory. This is like a huge structure, like it's almost a city, like a little township. It's got buildings everywhere, and this veritable army of insurgents just rolled in and took the place over. Right. So yeah, the Algerian special forces decided that they weren't gonna put up with it anymore. But I mean, they did several operations over the course of the week that did free a lot of the hostages. But the numbers that I heard when I was listening to the news a couple hours ago said that 83, 63, something like that. It was fewer than 100. Anyway, it was fewer than 100 of the 700 hostages were actually ended up dead, and that nearly all of the insurgents are dead. So, if you want to go at a pure numbers game, that's kind of a win,
I suppose. Still a tragedy.
Still sucks for the ones who are dead,
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's a good thing, but it's the lesser of the two evils, because the way I look at it is, in the grand scheme of things, if hostage takers know that hostages give them bargaining power, or they give them, leverage over the people whom they're in conflict with, it's going to encourage hostage taking. It's just like, the Somali pirates.
Yeah.
Somali pirates are not going to, pirate your ship if your company doesn't pay ransoms, right? I mean, they always start off little. First piracy, they kidnap an oil tanker and they ask for $50K, and the oil company goes, sure, $50K, here you go. And then they ask for $2 million, the oil company goes, sure, here you go. And then they go, okay, well, if I can get $2 million, maybe I can get $10 million, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I also heard that the surgeon group that did the hostage taking was also Al Qaeda affiliated, in that it was it's run by some guy that they refer to as this is the Marlboro Man.
Mr. Marlboro.
Yeah, because he's a smuggling kingpin for all of North Africa.
So, being hardly qualified to solve the world's problems, and as we're talking about international terrorism, and I hate that idea of terrorism because that's just too convenient of a label for the geopolitical strife that goes on what I would call the non-North American side of the world. Sides, yeah. We're pretty lucky here. It's kind of nice to be able to sit here in our comfy little Canada and America and be surrounded by this nice little defense net and water, and say, you guys, seriously, get your crap together,
Yeah, when the closest thing we have to compare to domestic terrorism is a bunch of Aboriginals putting a blockade on a rail line, I think we got it pretty lucky.
Yeah, our last major conflict was the pig war, right? So I'm not going to get into that. I'll post the link on the website. I guess the question becomes, this prompts two things. One, how do we fix this? And we have 20 minutes to come up with the solution. So get your thinking cap on, Maya. And is this a consequence of the UN allied forces, however you want to call them? I don't know what they're calling themselves. NATO forces pushing Al Qaeda out of Afghanistan. Like, are they just pushing themselves?
Well, I mean, they do have to find new ground, don't they? Being attacked elsewhere. Al Qaeda has to, but sorry. Al Qaeda has to find new ground elsewhere, being pushed out of where they've, had their footholds before by all these wars and.
Is there actually a distinction between the Taliban and Al Qaeda? And do you guys know what it is?
Yeah, there is. The Taliban is sort of like a political force. Like they're, sort of, I almost want to say that they're like, consider you have opposing political parties.
Okay, we'll call them the Reds and the Blues.
Right. So the Taliban is like the political party that's in charge of a country or whatever.
Okay.
And Al Qaeda are like the corporations that the Taliban control or give safe harbor to or support. Yeah, that's the kind of distinction. It's like a private-public sort of distinction, that Al Qaeda is like the company and the Taliban is like the government under which that company.
They're like the mercenaries, but it's the same ideologically. It's the same.
Yeah.
We think.
Well, it's.
I don't know.
They're not exactly the same, but they're both fundamental Islamic extremists, and I think the difference is that the Taliban sort of have this political intent, like they want control, they want to spread Islam, they want to make a caliphate, and that's their goal. Whereas Al Qaeda's goal is usually financial, it's usually about destruction, and it's usually about getting after those Jews. So there's a lot less of that sort of political empire building from Al Qaeda.
Okay.
At least as far as I'm aware. I'm not an expert in terrorism and terrorist groups, but that's the way it seems to me. That the Taliban wants a different kind of future, and the Al Qaeda guys just want to blow shit up. And sometimes their goals align, and that's why they got along for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
I feel like I should really have my boyfriend here right now, because he basically has a degree in international terrorism.
That disqualifies him.
Yeah.
This is the hardly qualified politics.
Yeah.
If you know what you're talking about, you're not allowed to be here.
Yeah.
That's our rule.
So.
I probably could point out Mali on a map, so I'm definitely not qualified to talk about this at all. But
Well,
yeah.
what are your thoughts and feelings and kind of impressions on this? I mean,
well, I haven't read all that much about it, except for the article that Ducky linked me to. I read that, and then I tried to find out a little bit about Mali, and then I gave up.
Got distracted by friends.
Yeah, something like that. But from one perspective, it's like you do end up with kind of the thing that just like with the US going into Iraq and Afghanistan, you do end up with a sort of feeling, or you just start out with a sort of feeling of what are we doing there? Why are they going there? Sort of.
Could the argument not be made that if we're not there, then things like this happen? I mean, even they're happening anyway, but it might accelerate the pace.
Yeah, no, sure, definitely.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I hate that line of reasoning. I mean, nobody really has an appetite for empire building anymore. I mean, no populations really do. Governments might, but that's a little different, I suppose.
Yeah, we're a bit past colonialism, really.
Yeah.
At least for the most part.
Well, we won't admit
At least
it.
until Mars 1 kicks in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a colony, gun, steel, and germs, right? That's how we dominate Western civilization. But anyway.
So,
yeah.
Well, when you hear the government try to defend it, and I've heard like professors who study this kind of stuff talk about it on the TV, and they all say that it's all about one thing. It's all about protecting our investments in Mali. And that there's not really a whole lot of sort of moral judgment at all there. It's just that chaos needs to be restricted, it needs to be contained, and when that chaos threatens your interests, you need to take action, or lest you lose that interest.
Well, and this is why I don't like the label of terrorist organization. I mean, it really oversimplifies what's going on. It speaks maybe to methods of intervention that these organizations are using, but you know what? Honestly, sure, there's probably a few crackpots out there that might be leading it, but I doubt the vast majority of these people, these, homeless, illiterate soldiers, whatever they are, although a lot of them tend to be well educated as well, I don't think that they wake up and go, you know what, I just want to go kill some whiteys.
Yeah.
Like, no, people don't do that. There's got to be some sort of, resource deprivation or some sort of geopolitical imbalance that they're fighting back in, some ideological imbalance to say that it's a terrorist organization. Like, how easy would it be to label the I Don't Know More movement a terrorist?
Yeah, see, that's why, terrorism, it's like so many other words, that's just a catch-all for, an easy way to label something that you don't agree with. And to give it a negative connotation to associate it with it.
Yeah, and I mean, who the terrorists are, that's completely based on, the eye of the beholder.
Exactly.
From whose point of view are they terrorists is the question, really.
And it speaks to some intellectual laziness, too. I mean, I'm not even going to consider their
position. It does a bit.
When it comes to Mali, I know that they've had a sort of separatist movement in the north. And the word I kept hearing used was Tuareg. That the Tuareg is the sort of the racial group or the ethnic group that are trying to get their independence or whatever. And they either teamed up or they were usurped by this AQIM group. And that's suddenly where all this power started shifting. Is that now the Tuareg have Al Qaeda working towards the same goals. So
it's a tribal conflict?
I guess. I mean, like I said,
in so much, and when I say tribal, I mean, like, we could talk about Edmonton, Calgary as different tribes, or liberals and conservatives as different tribes, but it's more...
In the end, almost everything is a tribal conflict.
I mean, when it comes to sort of the old world, though, a lot of those tribes are actual, familial lines. They're genealogical groups. They're not, like Edmonton, Calgary, that's geography, right? Liberal, conservative, that's ideology. I don't really think those things qualify as tribes. But, I mean, when you are a shepherd on the same land that your, 10 generations of your family have been, and your neighbors with the same people, same families that you've been neighbors with for 200 years, that's a tribe, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that those of us at least those of us in the New World, can't really relate to, because
if I don't like my neighbor, I either
you move.
I move,
right?
Or I make him move.
Or you let your dog poop on his lawn.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, that's like, my parents weren't born where I was born. My parents, weren't born where my grandparents were born. We don't have family friends that have been friends of the family for 4, 5, 6 generations that are all based on geography, right? We move around a lot, and there's a lot of sort of...
We choose our family, we choose our societies.
Yeah, and so for those of us in the New World, they're like, that's one of the things that I've always commented with my UK friends about, is that in Europe, in the UK in particular, there's thousands of years of history. I mean, even if you go back as recent as William the Conqueror, right? That's still, you got 1,000 years worth of castles and roads and monuments, right? In the New World, the oldest monument we have is like 300 years old, right? Plains of Abraham,
Right?
Right? I mean, maybe the 1600s, late 1500s, right? The earliest fur trading posts along the St. Lawrence River. But we don't have anything. In Middle East, it's even further. It goes back thousands, like millennia. There's, Baghdad, in one form or another, has been a city on the Tigris, between the Tigris and the Euphrates, for millennia, for 6,000 years at least. Yeah. Right? So there's a lot.
Jericho as well.
Yeah. So there's a lot of sort of a lot of history and a lot of cultural attachment that's invested in a lot of these locations. And that's something that I don't think we can relate to.
Do you think that really? And I imagine it would, but how does that hinder our ability to communicate or mediate peace? I mean, it's like I said, we have the privileged position of being in a relatively safe geographical location, in a relatively peaceful and mobile society. So, to go back to, I'm doing this class in Mount Royal, Gened 1303, and we're studying the Palestine-Israeli conflict, and starting from the Torah all the way up, and kind of what strikes me is you have, even within religions, you have the fundamentalists and the moderates, but Judaism is a culture that it's a faith that's a bloodline, right? Like, you're a Jew if your mother was a Jew.
Yeah, it's a matrilineal bloodline too.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of people seem to don't understand that Judaism and Islam are like brother and sister. They're siblings.
Right.
They're almost exactly the same. They're both Semitic, which is why it's always funny when somebody accuses an Arab of being anti-Semitic, because Arabs are Semitics as well.
Yeah.
Right? But the only difference is that you're a Jew if your mother was a Jew, and you're a Muslim if your father was a Muslim. So the one is matrilineal and the other is patrilineal.
Can you clarify what you mean by Semitic for those who may not get it?
Semitic was the way...
Well, it's a language group, technically. But...
Well, it is now, but if you want to go back in the mythology, basically it was anybody who's descended from Abraham, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or no, it's... I think Abraham went to the Arabs, and Isaac... Like, Abraham and Isaac were brother and sister?
Isaac and Ishmael.
No.
Ishmael. Sorry.
Isaac and Ishmael.
Yeah. Right. So Abraham was the father, and... The Jews and the Muslims, or Jews and Arabs, are because Arabs and Muslims are not the same thing, so I apologize for confusing them. But in this context, they can be considered the same thing. That they're all children of Abraham, if you believe in the religious genealogy, and that anybody who's descended directly from Abraham is a Semite. And one of the sons, Isaac, became the father of the Jews, and one, Ishmael, became the father of the Arabs, and that's where all this fighting comes from. At least as far as I understand it. Like, I'm not a theologian, so...
Yeah, no, I seem to remember something like that as well.
Yeah, my understanding is, I mean, that was like Tuesday's class, so...
Okay.
Well. Assuming my professor is right, and I have no reason to doubt him, that sounds about right, so...
I actually saw this... It was this fantastic monologue that I went to in Oslo this last spring. It was called Abraham's Children, which actually spoke about this, and the guy who wrote the monologue and performed it and everything, he'd basically he'd gone to Jerusalem, and he'd spoken to Muslims and spoken to Jews, and got this perspective on it and everything, and created a monologue from it. Just 1.5 hours of me sitting in a room just going, oh my god, this is so good. But it was kind of a unique perspective as well, because it was just this guy who'd just gone and talked to people. But it was called Abraham's Children, so that's why I thought about it.
Sure. Yeah, well, maybe we'll try to... That sounds like something that'd be interesting to see. I don't know if there's anything on YouTube or not, but maybe we'll try to dig that up.
Yeah.
Maybe it would be in Norwegian though. So.
How many languages do you speak, Maya?
3.
3. Fuck. See, I mean, like I know people who speak 4 or 5. Like I speak English, I speak bad English, and I speak a little bit of French. And then everything else I know is like hodgepodge here and there, a little bit of Hindi, a little bit of, Japanese, a little bit of Urdu, a little bit of Mexican.
No, I'm basically Mexican.
Okay, so going back to what I was talking about is, when we're talking about these ancient cities with these entrenched cultural groups with different religions who've never left, who their lineages go all the way back, how do we relate to them?
We can't.
And speak messages of peace and reconciliation? We
can't. I think that's the fundamental misunderstanding that a lot of these, Western leaders are trying to think, is that we can just swoop in with our statements of peace, love, and brotherhood, and that it will resonate with them. But it doesn't. And it doesn't because we look at it from a sort of, how do we stop causing harm? How do we prevent harm from being caused? How do we just all get along? And I think that we can't relate to the sort of investiture and mindset that a lot of these cultural groups have. Because of all that entrenched history, of all that, millennia of feuds, this clan against that clan, this tribe against that tribe, and sometimes trying to I think what we need to decide is whether or not we're interested in peace or whether we're interested in justice. And I think that sometimes, particularly when you're dealing with things like, the Middle East conflict or, tribal conflicts in Africa, those two things are not mutually inclusive, that they are actually mutually exclusive. And that if you want peace, it's going to be an unjust peace, and if you want justice, it's going to be unpeaceful.
It's scary to say it, but it strikes me that it's not our position to decide it. The conflict doesn't reside with us. I mean, we may have resource interests, right? And we may have interests in protecting our little fiefdoms over here and not letting their conflicts spill into our borders geopolitically, but which becomes harder and harder to do with, weapons of mass destruction being so portable, and open porous borders and so on and so forth, ease of transport. So I really don't know. I mean, part of me wonders if, just as a thought experiment, I'm not committed to this idea or anything, I'm just saying, it's almost like just let them fight it out.
Yeah, I think
that's kind of the way
occasionally as well.
I'll let
I mean,
I'll let my
ethically that doesn't sit well with me, but it's kind of like, I don't know.
No, I'm the same. I think sometimes is it our place? Should we be there at all? Should we bother? Or should we just let them deal with their own shit,
I'm a right-wing conservative, right? So I really, and for everybody who's American, that means libertarian. And so basically my opinion is that we should stay out of it. That we have no more right to impose peace or impose our values, or even to, go, in there and express our values, because our values are not their values. And yeah, I mean, if you sit back and just let them fight it out without judging one side or the other, you won't have decades and decades and decades of war. Or you may not have. I mean, you never know. It could always happen. But if...
Well, let me invoke... I want to say Moore's Law. It's not Moore's Law. But anyway, I can't remember the name of it. It doesn't matter. That type of thinking could easily have been said in the 1940s, right?
Well, it was said in the 1940s. I mean, it was said that way. That's America stayed out of the war for what, 5 years or 4 years or something, and it actually took Japan to kick America into the war.
Yeah.
So.
Which, to some extent, we should probably be grateful for.
a little bit, yeah, because So yeah, Will, you do have a point that. Because that's kind of the same argument that people are making against Iran right now. Is they're saying, look, Ahmadinejad is making all the same kind of statements and all the same kind of, actions that pre-war Germany was making, and look where that got us. So do we really want to be sitting back and appeasing the dictator again, or it's like I said, I'm of two minds as well. I mean, on one side you have the sort of justice of not getting involved, letting people be masters of their own destiny, and staying away from anything that doesn't directly affect you. But on the other side,
Nazis.
Yeah, Nazis. Right?
Now that we've invoked Godwin's law, right? So
yes, Godwin's law. I mean, Hitler was a pretty good freaking piece of evidence against or in support of interventionism, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So the problem is that where do you make that distinction? Like, where do you start thinking that somebody is worth preemptively intervening against or whatever? Like, I don't know if that makes sense.
And
I think that makes perfect sense.
And how do you do it when it's not a dictator but it's an ideology?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, when you look at Taliban and Al Qaeda, this is not an organized, like, there's no head to cut off. You can go after Osama bin Laden, you can go after.
Yeah, we already tried that, didn't we?
And they
really
it's a hydra. Just,
You try to go for whomever you think is their leader, but it doesn't matter because it's too much, it's too many, and too many people who so strongly. That's the thing with an ideology like this. It's like they believe it so strongly. They believe in what they're doing, and that's dangerous and difficult.
So, yeah, how do we fix that? Where does our Western guilt kick in to fix it? Is it something that we bother doing? Who knows, right? So, Godwin's law, for anyone who doesn't know, states that as an online discussion grows longer, the probability of comparison involving Nazis or Hitler approaches 1. Yeah. So in other words, that's how you've kind of run to the end of a discussion. So maybe we should move on to the next topic.
All right. Yeah. Well, let's take another break. The bottom of the hour. Or I guess it's the top of the hour again, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 We've already done 62 minutes of our 90-minute podcast.
Right.
And then we'll come back and we'll talk about judgments with Maia.
Sounds good. I run an IT company here in Calgary, a small business residential IT service, My Computer Hero, www.mycomputerhero.ca. Also available at 1-888-943-HERO or 403-444-0700. I do small business networking, pretty much any IT stuff that you need for your small business or home. I take care of, from website design, business planning, security assessments, network design, servers. You name it, I have a team that can help you do it. So feel free to give us a call and we'll help you out.
Yay!
Yay! Okay, that didn't really sound convincing, but whatever.
That's okay. We'll spice it up in post.
It's my company that's paying the hosting bill, so.
Yeah. If anybody has a right to pitch themselves, it's you, right?
Yeah, there you go. And the T-shirt, buy the T-shirt. We don't have a T-shirt, but when we have the T-shirt, buy the T-shirt.
Buy a poster.
Yeah. So
donate money to the PayPal, and we'll just send you the JPEG, and you can print it off and make your own poster.
Now I got to set up a PayPal. Thanks, dude. Make more work.
That's okay. You can donate it to my PayPal.
No. Anyway, well, I think that actually that last topic, with the exception of the Nazis, is a really good segue into our third link, which or our third topic, which is a photo called Judgments, which was taken by Rosa Lake of, I guess she's a Vancouver-based graphic design student.
Yeah, at the University of British Columbia, I think, in Vancouver. Yeah.
And, because radio is such a great medium for images, a lot is left kind of out of this visual piece of work. So it'll definitely be linked in the show notes as everything that we broach on that we can find is. The reference section, we try to be as comprehensive as possible, so please feel free to peruse through it. But in this photograph, Miss Lake, I think it's Rosea, but had this idea of, she was considering hem lengths, and what a hem length says, or what she assumed the hem length of somebody else. How can I put this? She was looking at other people, and she was noticing their hem length and making judgments about that person. So at such a height, that person might be matronly, and that one person might be a bit prudish, and that person might be a little provocative, and that person might be a slut or a whore, and so she constructed this photograph illustrating that, and I thought it was very powerful because it talks about the language of judgment, and I think that's a great way to jump into it. So let me ask you, Maya, seeing as neither Ducky or I wear dresses, at least publicly, what's your impression as to, do you judge? Do you feel judged by Hemlites?
I don't really wear skirts all that often, but I have in the past felt judged. Well, as a girl, you do end up feeling judged on almost anything you wear, because people are going to make very strong assumptions about what you're like and the kind of person you are based on what you wear and how you look. Not that people don't do that about men as well, but perhaps not to quite the same extent, considering our culture. But yeah, no, it's definitely, and I found myself judging other women as well based on what they wear, and quite often hem lengths, which is wrong, very wrong.
There's a slogan kind of going around that a dress doesn't mean yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you, okay? So how much of this is true? I mean, I look at this photo and I'm like, what? I can see where she's coming from in terms of.
Yeah, me too.
I cop to it. I've made those judgments about people, male or female. I mean, if I see some guy walking around in shorts that are up to the whore line, I'm kind of thinking the same thing. So it's not necessarily a gender exclusive thing, at least with my internal discourse. But I wonder how much of this actually stemmed out of kind of the slut walk movement and so on, which came from. There was a Toronto, I think it was Toronto, girl was raped a year or two back, and when she filed the police report, the police officer basically said that she kind of asked for it based on what she was wearing, that if she didn't dress like a slut. And that sparked outrage, and now these slut walks have kind of spread around at least Western cities where women dress provocatively or
not at all
at the asking for it or cheeky hemline or however you want to say it, just to kind of reassert that the dress doesn't mean yes, right? So I mean, it's easy for like, I'm gay, so I mean, to me it really doesn't matter how long or short your dress is. I'm not gonna think about jumping you. I don't really know how to say that politely.
Naturally enough, yeah.
So kind of, from the female perspective, right? Yeah. Or unless you have something to say, Ducky. I think there's an element of truth to this, but I don't think it's...
absolutely. My
there's a very big element of truth to it.
My sort of perspective, the whole thing is really along the way with what Maya started out with, that she was talking about how girls are often judged, if not solely, predominantly by their dress, by their fashion,
yes.
by how they present themselves, whereas a lot of the times men are also judged, but they're not judged solely by how they're dressed. They often how they're dressed colors the person's impressions of their other merits or characteristics, and I think that's got a lot of issues tied up in it. The other side that I would put out is that when you're dressing, you're dressing for a specific purpose, I think, and that you are trying to present a specific type of image based on your dress. If you dressed in a suit or a pant skirt or something along those lines, you're trying to present a professional, respectable demeanor. You don't have to match that sort of image, but I think that how you decide to dress yourself and what kind of clothing or fashion you... Will, what are you doing to your mic?
Yeah, I was wondering the same.
Sorry.
What was that sound?
I was combing the windscreen.
Oh, okay. It's okay, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I didn't know you could hear it.
Yes, yeah, it sounds like you're... So... But anyway, that I think dressing is one of the primary tools that people can use to present a specific image. And I think a lot of the times with those images comes certain connotations. So the question I have to ask is the assumptions or the judgments or the conclusions people draw solely from a person's image, how much culpability in that is the person who's wearing the clothes, and how much culpability is borne by the person making the assumption? I mean, I don't think it's an all or nothing proposition. I think that there's a combination in between the two. And I think that
there is.
You know, that the idea that making judgments of a person based on their dress is inherently wrong, absolutely. I think I would really disagree with that. I think that there's a lot of there's a lot of justifiable judgments and assumptions a person can make legitimately based on another person's mode of dress. I mean, if somebody is going to be, they're going to come into my store and they're wearing a mask, it's not unreasonable of me to assume that they have ill intent, right?
No.
So, I mean, the idea that if somebody, like I think it was Chris Rock, but it was one of those comedians who says stupid shit all the time. He basically said that if you're dressed like a hooker, it's not unreasonable of me to assume you're a hooker. Just like if I'm dressed like a police officer, it's not unreasonable of you to assume that I'm a police officer. And while that's hyperbolic in the extreme, I think the context is valid, that there is an image with associated dress. And I think that people, not just girls, but people, everyone, needs to be aware of what kind of image they're going to present when they're putting on their clothes in the morning.
If I dressed like a hooker, and you could make the assumption that I am a hooker, fair enough, but you could not make the assumption that I would necessarily want to sell my body to you. Just like if a girl dresses in a, for lack of a better word, sluttish manner, because she's going out on town and she's looking to get laid, you still haven't got the right to make the assumption that she wants to sleep with you, which is where this whole debate kind of...
Well, you as the individual, I'm going to kind of call you on that because you're saying that, if she's going out with the intent of trying to get laid and pick up guys, that guys don't have the right to make the assumption that they're trying to be picked up. I mean, that's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
No, I mean... that whole debate, the whole thing that, she was asking for it because she was dressed in a certain way. Basically, she was asking to get raped. She wanted to get laid, so why not me?
Oh, okay.
I mean,
I think we can agree with that. But
just because you've dressed provocatively doesn't mean that you bypass consent. I'm totally with you on that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. I don't think there's any argument against that.
But, if I dress in a manner to go pick up other guys and other guys start hitting on me, I should be offended by it.
Yeah.
Not from people hitting on you, but, a no is a no. And when people get pushy...
Absolutely.
It just seems to me that that there are just, if you're dressing in a sexual nature with the intent of, increasing one's sex appeal, if somebody is attracted by that sex appeal, you really have no one to blame but yourself. Where that sex appeal, where that sex appeal goes, or where that sort of attraction goes after that, that's where we all have power. But I really hesitate to accept the assertion that, if you find yourself attracted to a woman because of the manner that she's dressed, that you are somehow a pervert, somehow you're, a rapist in waiting,
no, not at all,
any
of
that
all.
kind of nonsense.
That's not what I'm saying at all.
That the flattering attention is unwanted. And that's where I really see a lot of this going,
That's not what I'm saying at all. And I mean, if I were to go out dressed in a certain way and somebody were to, compliment me on how I look, that's nice. If they were to try to hit on me and I were to say, sorry, I am not interested, then they should respect that and stop trying, basically, is what I'm saying. And I mean, a lot of the time, a lot of people can get pretty fucking pushy.
Well, not in my
if you're dressed in a certain way.
I'm sure that it can happen, but I haven't seen it a lot anyway. At least
I've seen it quite a bit.
not in a acceptable sense. Usually when that kind of behavior happens, it gets shut down pretty quickly. But I don't know, it seems from my perspective that it's really subjective, that it's flattering if the girl likes the guy, and it's harassment if the girl doesn't like the guy. But the action itself can be exactly the same. So, I mean, that's kind of where I think we're all in agreement that dress does not mean yes, I guess, right? But at the same time, I think that the idea that we're going to absolve the person of all culpability for an image that he or she chooses to present, I think is also flawed. The just or right place is far more in the middle.
Well, as Lake was kind of wrote in response to interview questions about, what she was going for in this, and we've kind of taken it in a bit of a different direction, and that's cool. Whatever. But she was talking about how, or one of the things she mentions is when she sees a woman in, a hijab or whatnot, she sees them as being oppressed and
which is not necessarily
and unsexual, even though they may feel that they're being sexual.
Yeah.
But
no, I can see where. Because, I mean, that brings up the whole other thing about how women seem to judge other women far more harshly than men judge them. I mean, that's
quite
why
often, yeah.
you see, women's magazines, and they're just filled with, fashion advice, and they're ripping down, people who, are at award shows or whatever, and look at the dress she's wearing, and how could she wear those heels with that handbag, and, they just... There's
like hot or not sections, and this is how you should look and this is how you shouldn't.
Yeah, and that kind of, like, on one hand, I kind of have to blame the fashion industry for propagating it, but on the other hand, I kind of have to blame people for falling for it. Right? I mean...
And HGTV is the equivalent for middle-aged women. And men.
Yeah.
Look at your kitchen. Anyway.
But I mean, it's not like you read the front of Men's Health, and it's all talking about what sneakers you should wear with which watch, and how to get, all the girls to love you, and
No, but it's talking about how to get better abs.
There are men's magazines that do talk about that.
Yeah, I know, but
too.
that's not the entirety of the thing. So, I mean, that's something that, I really think magazines like Glamour and Vogue and Cosmopolitan should really stop doing, is being so concentrating on fashion and what people are wearing, and start concentrating on people with their merits. So if they're going to have a cover person, like this month is someone named Julianne Howe, who has strikingly beautiful eyes, but I don't know anything else about her because all they talk about is her clothes and her wardrobe and, the fact that she's, on TV. Something to do with Ryan Seacrest. I don't know. But the point is that, all they talk about is fashion, and that is arguably the least important aspect of a person's, merit or worth.
No, indeed.
Okay, but Unilever through their Dove did the beauty campaign. The beauty is in her. It's
but they were still concentrating solely on beauty. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, they were trying to change the standards of beauty, but it didn't change the fact that they were focused solely on what makes a person beautiful. Right? And I think that's where the fault lies. It's not so much in trying to change the definition of what's beautiful, because that's always going to be subjective, but we need to stop focusing on beauty so much. Stop focusing on fashion. Stop focusing on this kind of stuff and tying a person's worth entirely to how he or she is dressed, or how or she, he or she is how fit they are, or,
I think aesthetic appreciation is important in developing a taste and a lexicon for that. I don't think that it's helpful to say, we should ignore beauty, we should ignore fashion, but I think that we should, maybe follow Unilever's lead a little bit and say, okay, there is a little more depth to this.
Yeah, I think so too. There is a beauty standard, and it is at the moment it's a very unhealthy beauty standard. And there are so many people who try to live up to this standard, and a very, very small percentage of women have any chance at all of achieving the kind of beauty that is advertised in magazines and on TV, most of us, we don't stand half a chance, you know, because we don't have those bodies. And then people starve themselves and people do crazy things to themselves for no good reason, because they're supposed to be beautiful. And that,
well, even
one side of it is get the focus away from the beauty standard at all. I'm for that. But another side of it is to, you know, especially when it comes to young people, to, you know, tell people that, you know, you can be beautiful without looking like the people in the magazines, you know?
Yeah.
Well, so both are important. Both are important factors to making this better.
I just meant that we shouldn't solely be tying a person's worth to how he or she looks.
Oh, definitely.
Because, I mean,
completely
arguably women's worth is really sort of societally anyway is tied into how they look. Men's worth is tied into what they can do, I find.
What they can produce.
Yeah, so how much money you have, what car you drive, what kind of watch you have, how much jewelry you have, what size of your house.
You know, it's not that. What type of sacrifices you're willing to make.
Yeah, even that. Yeah. So, I mean, it's the situations, I think, are directly comparable, even if they're not the same standard is being used.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that a person's value is more than what they drive or how they dress. And I think that's why, even if we're trying to change the standards of beauty or change the standards of affluence, it doesn't really correct the underlying problem, which is that when you're using standards of beauty or standards of affluence to judge the value of a person, you're ignoring all the shit that makes them valuable. You know, the value that they have inherently. Because, you know,
these are their symbols that communicate those things. We have to have some way to do that. I mean, to say, and that's what I'm saying. Like, you can't, as much as
I'm not saying just exclude them. I'm saying that it's not solely. We need to add other things to the mix. You know. So.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I hate beauty magazines personally. I don't read them.
Me too. I really do not read them.
I think they're an intellectual or emotional cancer on society. But
yeah. Well, I'd say the same thing about tabloids.
Well, exactly.
The entire front rack at my store is filled with Kardashians and dying Bill Clinton and, you know, the royal baby. And I'm like, who cares? Why is this so important that we need 22 different magazines all telling the same story about how Bill Clinton has cancer? Who cares?
Actually, there's an answer to that. Gossip is very important about helping us to determine who we can trust in our society, and it's a innate human need to gossip. It's intrinsic to our social structures. Much like we've passed the burden of revenge onto the state, we've passed the burden of gossip on to the media. So, you know, that actually creates more social harmony within our groups, because we can gossip about these others that don't really exist. I mean, whether it's...
Instead of gossiping about each other.
Yeah. So, I mean, I agree. I really don't care whether or not Kate's pregnant. I mean, if she is, I hope she has a healthy whatever, and long live the king, queen, whatever, but, or not.
Yeah.
But gossip does serve an important function in our society, and I think it's somewhat ingenious that we've been able to outsource that. And for those who don't care for it, we can opt out of it, and it does create harmony, but there is that kind of angst at the checkout, and I understand that, but don't write it off entirely.
No, it's a good point.
Yeah, I've never really thought about it like that.
Definitely.
You need to watch more TED Talks.
Although I would argue. Yeah, maybe. I'm learning to speak. The Percocet's kicking. I would contend though that you know, if you're using gossip to decide who to trust, chances are you don't want to trust the person who's gossiping with you.
Yeah.
Because the way I look at it is, if we're talking shit about Rob when Rob's not here, you know, does that mean that you guys are talking shit about me when I'm not here, or that I'm talking about shit about Will when he's not here, right? I mean,
because gossip doesn't necessarily have to be talking shit about people. It can just be, you know.
Yeah, I suppose.
Generally talking about people, but yeah, no, I get your point.
Well, nobody wants to be judged without the ability to defend themselves, right? But That's why we have those axioms of actions speak louder than words, because that's a warning that society is going to judge you on what you do, not what you think.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And it's unfair, but it's wise to heed it, because that's just how we socialize, And we talk behind Bob's back. We do it all the time, and I talk behind her back, and you guys talk behind mine. And you know what? That's how we work things out.
But everything that we talk about with the person when they're present as well. So I mean, it's not like there's anything that we're talking. There's nothing I talk about with you about Bob that I either haven't or am not willing to talk about with Bob himself. Does that make sense? And I think that's kind of where the inherent difference is.
Fair enough. But that's because we're shameless. No. Yeah. I think it's because we have maybe, integrity, if I can claim that without sounding like just a ripe old ass.
A pompous.
Yeah.
I have far more integrity than the rest of you little plebes.
Yes.
Because I will mock somebody to his face as well as to his ass. So.
But it's true. So, wow. So we've revived Godwin's Law, invoked the Nazis. We've talked about sexuality and dresses and Facebook and image, and why can't we all get along, and should we just let people fight it out in the ring and clean up the mess? And this has been really interesting. I like how these tangents erupt, but it's been a lot of fun. I think I'm gonna go and just sometimes after I talk with you guys, I'm like, okay, that's it, I'm now a diehard libertarian, and then next week it's like, now I'm a diehard Marxist, and now I just want to go like join the Taliban and screw Western society. You all suck. But it's good. That's the whole point of this podcast, right? And that's why we enjoy each other's companies, because we make each other think and challenge our values. And you guys have done that, both Ducky and Maia, and I appreciate it. And I'm glad that you were able to step in for Bob today.
Stay up so late? It's 4:00 in the morning there or something?
Yeah, it's 3:30 now.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for deciding to stay up until all hours of the morning to hang out with people on the other side of the planet.
It's not like I sleep at night anyway.
Well,
so no, you're welcome.
Well, you make a good substitute for Rob. So.
Well, thank you. That makes me happy.
Yeah. So. We'll have to have you back one of these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe all four of us can get together or something. Who knows?
Yeah,
you'll probably get along with Bob on a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm kind of afraid to get her and Bob together at the same time.
Gang up on you.
Yeah. Will just be like, I'm staying out of this one.
Yeah, I'll go get a coffee and bagels or something.
You come back and I'll be stamping the hammer and sickle on my forehead.
All right, Ducky, any final thoughts, parting shots?
No, just thanks to Maia for coming, and the Percocet, other than not having a headache anymore, I feel really no effect. So I don't know if I'm just magic or if Percocet doesn't affect me, but I hope I've been reasonably coherent for the last hour and a half.
Yeah. But, you made about as much sense as usual.
Yeah, as usual. Thanks to Maia. I'm hoping Bobby's having fun in the UK. By the time this airs, he'll probably be back or be close to being back, because this is probably going to be going up on the 27th, I think.
He comes back.
Oh, no, it'd be the 31st. This is the episode for the 31st.
The first.
Sorry, for the first, yes.
It gets posted on the first, and we record on the second.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is going to be like old news by the time everybody hears this, but it's you don't come here for the news, you come here for the discourse.
Yeah, so we do talk about current events, but they're not current anymore. I mean, when this airs, the mission in Mali will have already finished. The pilots in the C-17 will already be back at CFB Winchester, wherever it is, and
this is the Canadian government. I don't think it's going to be over that quickly.
Well, they're only doing it for a week apparently, so. We'll see what Mission Creep says, but you never know. But yeah, and then that's pretty much all I have to say.
And Maya, any thoughts or shots?
I don't know, not really. Did you want to include a song or something?
If you want to tell us about the song, I'll just add it in post, unless you want to do it live over your mic, but...
Yeah, that's not really much point. I did record it earlier, so...
Well, give us a little background on it.
Yeah, no, this is a song that I wrote a few months ago, or actually I started writing it almost a year ago, and then I started writing the lyrics, and I thought they sucked, and then I brought them to school and we were doing lyric writing thing, and my teacher thought they were really great, so I finished them. And it's basically a song about the things that shock people in society, and how we've got this, a lot of people, we have this faux liberal kind of stance on things, and it's, everything's okay, but then the things that actually shock us are the things that you wouldn't think would shock you, like, you could watch a movie and there would be lots and lots of violence and that would be okay, but then the moment somebody curses or there's, a tit,
right?
Oh my God,
then it's not okay anymore. Yeah, exactly, then it's not okay anymore. Yeah. So that's what the song is about. The song is called, the title of the song is Amanda Palmer's Tits.
Does Amanda Palmer know you're writing a song about her tits?
No, but I think she'll be very pleased when she finds out.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to show up in Google, so...
Yeah. Well, if you Google Amanda Palmer's tits now, you actually get a hell of a lot of pictures.
Yeah, she really doesn't like to wear clothes very much during her videos, does she?
She is quite happy with getting undressed.
Yeah.
All the power. I mean, that's women's lib, right? So.
Well,
yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
I think everybody has that right, don't they?
Yeah, but nobody wants to see my tits.
But okay. I just don't see how that's a women's liberation issue. That's all.
Yeah, no, I know.
So.
It's an equalization thing.
Yeah. Anyway, what about you, Willie?
Well, I kind of said what I had to say. This was a lot of fun. I'm kind of sad that we can't do like 3 of these a week. I have so much fun doing this. I would release one of these like every second day if we could. But
you want to kill me?
I don't think anybody would listen. Like,
you start doing your own damn post-production.
Yeah. I think after a while I'd be the only one doing the listening too. But
Yeah.
Once a week allows us the chance to develop some reasoned, rational, sober thought, and then throw it out the window and come on air anyway. So,
yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm having a blast. I for all 25 of you who downloaded the podcast, thank you, and share it with your friends, share it with your enemies.
Yeah, like I said last week or the week before, we're a great weapon to inflict on people you don't like.
Yeah. Somebody should use our podcast for their corporate on hold music, like if it's a customer complaint line or something. So
thank you for calling HSBC. Please hold.
All right. Well, with that, let's hear the music.
Look, we're all so modern, everyone's so liberal and quirky and so open-minded and shocking. It's so shocking to see pop stars take their clothes off and use curse words in their songs. And never mind that 20 years ago Madonna did it first. You can't show your face in church, but Lady Gaga's meat dress doesn't shock you half as much as Amanda Palmer's tits and furry pits. Look, we're also tolerant of violence in movies, baby. Look what we are proving. But it's shocking, oh so shocking, when they have sex on camera. You'd think this was America. Never mind that 25 years ago Almodovar did it first. You can't show yourself in church, and that sex scene in Brokeback Mountain doesn't shock you half as much as Amanda Palmer's tits and furry pits. also angry about the state of the media. We have a million complaints between us, but it's shocking, oh so shocking, how celebrity A got a DUI and celebrity B laid down and died. And never mind that 40 odd years ago, Janis Joplin did it first. You can't show your face in church, but Amy Winehouse's death, it didn't shock you half as much as Amanda Palmer's tits and furry pits. Look, we're all so carefree, we can joke about the government and rape and self-entitlement, but it's shocking, oh so shocking, how those fuckers try to force us into healthcare plans and servitude. And never mind that many decades ago, all the rest of the world did it first. You can show yourself in church, but Obama's plans and policies don't shock you half as much as Amanda Palmer's tits and furry pits. And never mind that on this planet millions are dying every day. You don't believe that anyway. And rocket strikes on the Gaza Strip don't shock you half as much as Amanda Palmer's tits and furry pits. As Amanda Palmer's tits and furry pits.
Thank you for listening to Hardly Qualified. Our website can be found at hardlyqualified.ca, and there you can download episodes, leave comments, and check references and links mentioned in the shows. The hosts are on Twitter. Will is at Will Connor, Rob is at Theology Writer, and Ducky is at AngryDuck_HQ. They can also be reached by email at will, rob, or angryduck@hardlyqualified.ca. The podcast is recorded on Saturday afternoons and scheduled for download the following Friday, which can also be found on iTunes. Thank you, and tune in next week.